Welcome to an enlightened hour of interactive talk. This is Guided Spirit Conversations with host Marla Goldberg. In this program, we spotlight guests from all over the globe who have helped others change their lives and will provide you with the tips, tools, and techniques that you need to help you make a difference in your own life. Now, here is Marla Goldberg.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to the first show of November. Can you believe we are in November? It's come by so fast. And here in the States, we're very close to our holiday starting, Thanksgiving, and it's just mind-boggling to me. But welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you're enjoying the fall leaves. So today, my guest is Michele Elman. Michele is a 5-board accredited life coach, host of the podcast In All Honesty, and author of the book Am I Ugly?, which was named a top read by Cosmopolitan magazine. Best known for her campaign, Scarred, Not Scared, that's it. I'm so sorry. She was named one of the Sun's 50 most inspirational women in the UK. She has appeared on the BBC Radio, Fox News, The Today Show, and has been featured in Women's Health, People, Teen Vogue, MTV, Buzzfeed, and the Huffington Post. A prolific public speaker whose TedX talk has been viewed for more than 60,000 times. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology and lives in London. Welcome, Michele.
Thank you so much for having me on.
This is quite a impressive list for somebody who is just is so young. Just going to say it.
Yes, I mean, I started work quite quickly when I got off the ground. Once I got qualified, it feels weird even to me that I've been a life coach for 7 years now.
It's amazing. And here you are, and you've not only written one book, but you've written 2 books. And the second book, which the name I love, The Joy of Being Selfish, Why You Need Boundaries and How to Set Them.
Yeah, my new baby.
Your new baby, you're birthing a new baby. And It's such an important topic. And you and I were talking offline about your first book, Am I Ugly? And I know it's a little bit different than what I talk about here on my show because it's usually more metaphysical, spiritual, personal growth. But I thought your story was so profound because you started having a series of surgeries when you were very young.
Yeah, so I had 15 surgeries before the age of 19 from a brain tumor, a punctured intestine, obstructed bowel, a cyst in my brain, and a condition called hydrocephalus. And it left me with a lot of surgery scars that I was really insecure about. And it's what started my public persona, I guess you would call it, because a photo of me went viral with the hashtag Scarred Not Scared, and I had written this caption about how people with scars can't wear bikinis and how I had this belief and that it's not true. And the image went viral across the world, including America, and it grew me this following that has kept growing since 7 years ago now, and has created an aspect of my job that I didn't think being an influencer, being on social media would be a big part of being a life coach. But alongside that, the public speaking and the author, over time, it became a different version of the job I thought I would have at 21.
But how amazing. Now, told you offline that I've had a lot of surgeries, and I would joke with my friends saying I wanted to get tattoos of zippers on each and every one of them. And then I'd have my Halloween costume all made. But I find it powerful because we were talking about body image and facial image. It's more than just body. It's the whole encompassing being, and how you said something very, very prolific about, I'm trying to remember what it was, but I had said to you, that was an amazing statement. I don't know if you remember what you had said, but it was about accepting yourself. I call it warts, wrinkles, and all, but you might say scars and something else.
Yeah. Well, I was really insecure about all of my surgery scars, but what I kind of realized was once I got okay with the story behind the surgery scars, they were no longer a reminder of the worst time in my life, even though it probably will stay up there as the worst time in my life. It wasn't a spark for a conversation that I couldn't speak about anymore. Whereas before, when I was so ashamed of it and I carried so much shame around my scars and the way I looked, and I never wanted to talk about it. And so it was my biggest secret until I learned to accept the way I looked. And then over time, I realized how unimportant it is. And the ironic thing is, when you believe you're ugly, beauty is the most important thing to you. It's only once you realize, oh, actually, I'm not ugly and I could be beautiful, that you realize how unimportant beauty is to begin with.
Because it comes from the inside and radiates out.
But also just from the matter of fact point that the way we look is so unimportant, and that it's the last thing that defines us. And when it comes to the bigger picture of I went through 15 surgeries, there would have been a chance that I didn't survive it. Is how I look meant to be an important factor in that? Like, if we only have so much time in the world, then am I meant to be spending that time and energy beautifying myself? Because frankly, that sounds like the biggest waste of time possible.
I love that. And we don't know when our expiration is. We don't know when we're going to take our last breath. And you have a very powerful point about that.
Well, I just think we're more than our beauty, and I'm sort of bored of being defined by it, whether it means me going to meetings or public speaking without any makeup, or it means me not really particularly caring what I wear, or there used to be hours of the day where I'd get dressed and then undressed and change again because I'd be so nervous about what I was wearing, and am I comfortable in it? Do I want to wear this? Do I want to hide my arms? The amount of hours in your day you used to think about all these things that actually stem down to your insecurity about the way you look, that's time and energy you're not getting back.
I love that, because you're not going to get it back. And why not do it for something a little bit more productive and of service? I'm a service person. So, and you are as well, because you've written 2 of these books. In your second book, The Joy of Being Selfish. Oh my God. How many people, I talk about boundaries all the time, because I've heard, well, I feel so guilty. I feel like I'm being a bad guy if I'm putting up boundaries. And I keep saying, you're not being a bad guy. You're being a good guy to yourself. You're protecting yourself. So what prompted this book for you to come up, birth out?
Well, actually, I think some of the time it comes from people who believe so much in being of service that they don't sometimes, they're not being of service because they want to out of the goodness of their heart, but they're doing it out of a place of lack, and because they feel like they're not good enough without giving so much of themselves. So I was very much a giver, and I was a people pleaser, and I was a pushover, and they're all different variations of the same word in my mind, but it essentially meant that I didn't think I was good enough as I was intrinsically worthy, intrinsically valuable. And so how I made up for that, or I compensated for that, was by making everyone else happy around me. But the only thing that happens when you do that is you attract a bunch of people who take advantage of you, and it's at the detriment of yourself, because that one time you actually put yourself first, the one time you actually say no, the one time you actually decline that invite, you start to realize a number of people who are in your life aren't really there for you. They're there for what you can do for them.
Right. Yeah. What have you done for me lately? Kind of thing. Absolutely.
And they're not reciprocated relationships is what usually happens, is when you, because also there's a manipulative aspect of being a people pleaser. And when you use the word manipulation, people can sometimes think I'm using it as a really strong word. But the reason why I say being a people pleaser is manipulative is because you're changing who you are in order to fit all the criteria of what that person wants from you. But in that way, you're not actually being yourself. And so if you're changing who you are to get your desired outcome, and if your desired outcome is friendship, for example, and that's all you want out of it, then if they like Taylor Swift, then you'll like Taylor Swift. But that's not true, and that's not authentic, and that's not who you actually are. But it's because when we look at manipulation, we don't understand that it's actually altering who we are to fulfill someone else's criteria. And so that's why it's really important to actually look at why you're doing these things and realize there is someone who's going to like your type of music. There is that person who's actually going to like whatever you're interested in. You don't need to change yourself in order to be liked. You just need to find the right people.
And when you do that, you start feeling so badly about yourself. It just layers more and more, and you find yourself being lost in trying to please everybody else. So you start losing of who you are, what you like, what you want. Um, there was a movie with Julia Roberts, The Runaway Bride. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I don't
Have
think
you
I've
ever
seen it.
seen it?
No.
Okay, so she keeps running away at the altar. But what came out in the movie is that she kept changing herself to fit the guy she was going out with, who eventually proposed, who she eventually froze and ran away from the wedding on the wedding day. I mean, that was the whole thing, is it was always on the wedding day but because she lost herself, she didn't know who she was. And that was a piece of this movie. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is how we lose ourselves and forget who we really are, or learn, or don't even know who we really are. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time when it comes to things like marriages, it's the day after the marriage that you actually start to reveal your true self. And then that's where, from both parties, it's actually quite an unfair process, because you start revealing your true self. The person you're married to is going, "Who is this person? That's not who I married. That's not who you've been for the last few years." And on your side, you're like, "Oh, well, I finally decided to be vulnerable and show you my true self, and you don't love my true self." But they didn't agree to marry that person. They agreed to marry this person you were performing and the one you were pretending to be for the last few years. So it's deception on both sides, to be honest.
It's so right. And I always say you really need to look into who you're marrying and why you're marrying, what your
And
reason is.
what
Go ahead.
need it's fulfilling. Because I think sometimes it's marriage is serving a purpose, and a lot of the time you want the marriage more than you want that person actually standing in front of you. And there's a sense of security, and there's a lack of questioning that happens, because in our society we only view dating through the lens of, if you get the desired outcome of marriage, that's the only way dating is seen as successful, rather than actually going through and going, well, do I actually want to get married? Questioning all of these norms that are in our society, and also questioning whether you're just jumping from one stage to another, and it's like the logical next step because you've already moved in together. What's the next thing we can do? Maybe it's got a bit boring. Maybe you started questioning it, rather than actually sitting in that discomfort of not knowing whether this is the right person. You go to the next step to almost cover over that feeling and hope that, oh, well, it's just cold feet. And actually, no, that was your intuition. That was your fear arising, and you didn't listen to it, but instead just plastered over it with being busy, planning a wedding or whatever it is.
It's so true. They distract themselves with all the outside frills and whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, here it is. It's like, uh-oh. Yeah. I mean, I was engaged at a very young age, and what you're saying is so true, because I know that I wouldn't have been the person who I became if I did that when I was first engaged the first time.
Absolutely.
And yes, there was a string, but it was but I waited. So you recommend boundaries with friends. Let's talk about how friendship and boundaries work together.
Yeah, so boundaries are simply how you teach the world to treat you, and it's about your treatment and what is and isn't acceptable. It's the line between who the world wants you to be and who you actually are. And within a friendship, you want a friendship where the energy and effort you put in is going to be reciprocated. And for different people, different values are going to be important. For me, I guess one of my highest values is time. So I want my time to be respected. I don't like friends who turn up 2 hours late. It doesn't work for me. And but for someone else, they don't mind things like that. What they care more about is more in-person interaction, or what they care more about is whether, I mean, another big value for me is like trust, so that I know that if I tell you something in confidence, it gets kept in confidence and you don't go around spreading that. And so it depends on who you're friends with, but as a whole, it's about the fact that if a friend doesn't honor your boundaries, they don't honor you. If they don't respect your boundaries, they don't respect you.
Your words are so powerful and they're so true. And, you know, friendship, there are a lot of people who, they take advantage. There's one-way friendships. They never call. If you call, they'll do something with you, but it's always you initiating something, this, that, or the other thing.
Absolutely. And I actually think it's really hard to measure friendships in just one component. So, for example, I'm an awful person at initiating, but if you text me, you will always get a reply straight away. And I think when it comes to looking at small things like that, if that's important to you, it's important you communicate that. So actually tell the person, hey, I've noticed you never text me. Why is that? And also, is that not important to you? Okay, well, it's important to me, and I would love it if you could text me more or initiate more or make plans more. Whatever you need, actually communicate that, because people don't know your boundaries unless you set them.
And communicate them. I mean, you can set them in your mind, but if you don't communicate with them, the people around you, they're not going to understand what's going on.
Absolutely, and you can't assume that everyone's boundaries are the same. So as I said, texting's not that important to me, but to other people, it might be important. And so they won't know that unless you actually just let them know.
So true. Well, I'm one of these people who would prefer to talk than text because I just think it's faster, it's easier, and you can actually tell the mood somebody's in, how they're presenting it. Like if there's humorous sarcasm rather than, or they're in a bad mood, whatever, however they want to present it, you can't feel it in a text.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
that's just one of my things. We've got a couple minutes before we go on break, and let's talk about what to do when people's boundaries are crossed.
So when your boundaries are crossed, what you will notice in your body is anger and resentment, and so you have to you in order to relieve that feeling inside you, you set the boundary, and that's essentially your body's way of saying a boundary has been crossed. And if you're on the receiving end of that, and someone's telling you, "Hey, you broke my boundary," and you might not have known it, and it might have been well intentioned. For example, the other day, I called everyone babe, darling, honey, whatever, and someone said to me, "Hey, you've been doing it for quite a few weeks, and I haven't got around to saying it, but I actually hate the word babe." And that I was like, "Thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you for telling me. Really appreciate it. Won't happen again." And it's being able to receive that, knowing it's not personal. It's not because I said the word babe. It's because they don't like the word babe. It's them and their boundaries, what they like. But it's accepting it, receiving it, and also realizing that it's not about you, but that you should respect their boundaries. So I'm not going to continue using the word babe after you've told me not to.
I love that because it's so true. But people have to let us know too what they don't like. And for some reason, people hold back on doing that.
Exactly, which is why when this person was having the conversation with me, I actually was really thankful. And I did say, thank you for letting me know, because not everyone would let you know in that situation. And the word he actually used was like, the word babe makes him recoil. And a lot of people would have swallowed that feeling and just been like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But then it would have seeped out in resentment. It would have seeped out in passive aggressive behavior, rather than actually just communicating it and trusting that we have a strong enough relationship that you communicating that's not going to lead to a massive argument or even an end of a friendship or an end of a relationship. It's just going to mean I change my behavior slightly so that I don't cross your boundaries.
It's being considerate. When they share
Exactly.
what they say, it's just being considerate of the person, of their needs, of their desires, of everything else. Let's hang on here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Michele Elman. If you want to talk to Michele, the number is 888-346-9141. If you want to IM on Facebook, feel free on the Guided Spirit Conversations page. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, great job. We're all clear.
Thank you. That was fabulous.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to get a drink quickly.
Oh, please do. I'm going to do the same. Oh, I love, the whole, when we were talking about people cross boundaries, that people have to share what their boundaries are too, because it's one thing to have your own boundaries, but if the other people in your world don't share what their boundaries are, then how do you know?
Yeah, you can't make an assumption around it either, because even if you went through life trying to check every boundary before you crossed it, at no point would I ever think anyone would have a boundary around the word babe. That it's just wouldn't have entered my mind. So there is no physical way to check every boundary before you cross it.
It's so true. I can't wait to get to the next question I have, especially because It's so powerful. I'm gonna wait till we get on air before we do it.
Okay.
Just a little
Sounds
teaser.
good.
But I feel that's a really powerful question that many people always ask, like, how do I deal with this?
Yeah.
So we're gonna learn how to deal with the boundaries of, and we'll wait till we get back on the air
Perfect.
officially.
Sounds great.
Excellent. Is there anything that you want to talk about other than the book I want to make sure that I hit all the places.
No, it all sounds good. I'm happy to focus on the book, to be honest.
Okay. So is the book launched?
Yes, so it's been out since August, and it's in Barnes and Noble and all your other big bookstores. Although the only one I can ever remember is Barnes and Noble.
I know they've
You have slightly
diminished.
different names to the ones here.
It's true. But you have Amazon, and is it
Yeah,
audio?
it's on Amazon and it's on Audible on audiobooks.
I love Audible. I live on Audible
I
between.
know, me too. I always have one at least on the go.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You are listening to Guided Spirit Conversations. To reach Marla Goldberg or her guest today, you're invited to call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. If you'd rather send an email, the address is guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. If you're just tuning in, I am with life coach, podcast creator and host, and author, Michele Elman. So Michelle's coming from the UK. Her first book, Am I Ugly? When was that released, Michele?
2018.
2018. And now her new book, The Joy of Being Selfish, Why You Need Boundaries and How to Set Them, was released in August, and you can find that on Barnes and Noble, all your major bookstores, Amazon, and I was so excited to hear it's on Audible because I'm an Audible fan. So
Me too.
I don't have time to sit and listen, but I can definitely do it while walking the dog, driving. So love it. Okay, so here's this burning question. The holidays are coming. They're coming fast. We all know that in holiday time, people, especially family people, think that they have the right to criticize, judge, say whatever it is they want to say because we're blood. How do you handle those boundaries with the family, these situations?
So I don't think family get a separate separate rules or separate boundaries. They get treated the exact same way as anyone else in my life, and therefore it means they have to treat me in the exact same standard and the same expectations I have for any other person. Just because we're blood, just because we're family, doesn't mean you get a separate set of rules. So if you treat me badly, if, as you say, they have opinions about my life and they are offering them up without actually asking me whether I want their opinions, then
Without
I don't stay in
solicitation.
exactly. I don't stay in conversations that I don't want to be in. So if they start bringing up my body, for example, making comments on my body, then I would say, I've asked you to stop commenting on my body. If you do it one more time, I'm going to leave the room. And if they do it again, I do leave the room. And I go, you can come find me if you want to talk about anything else, but you're not going to talk about my body like that. Or if they want to talk about, obviously there are different views on vaccinations and all of these things that are going to come up this Christmas holiday, and so I would just say I don't want to be in this conversation. I'm allowed to have my opinions and you're allowed to have yours, and I didn't ask you for your opinion on my opinion, so I'm going to go somewhere else, and if you want to talk about something else, then you can come find me. I'll be in the next door room.
I love that. And how do you deal with like this cancel culture where if you don't agree with me, you can't be in my life, vice versa. When people get all twisted that way.
Well, I think the thing with cancel culture is it's actually indicative to how bad we are at forgiving ourselves. And so we reflect on other people that because we are so hard on ourselves when we make a mistake, when we make a mess, and we don't forgive ourselves for what our own wrongdoings, when someone else makes a mistake, we jump on top of that because it gives us a moment of relief from the times when we've messed up and you wish other people had forgiven you, but you don't recognize the fact that you're judging other people just as harshly. And it's that very stereotypical saying of the most judgmental people in the world are the people who judge themselves the hardest, and it's just them reflecting that to the outside world. The most critical people in the world criticize themselves most more than anyone else.
It's so true. It is so true. I just find that if you don't agree with somebody, if you don't believe what they believe, if you don't think the way they think, well, there's no room in my life for you because you're not a puppet to me. Go ahead.
I think also it's about respecting, that's intellectual boundaries. So respecting the fact that everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, and that unless someone asks for your opinion, you don't need to offer it up. And that if someone's making a decision, maybe someone's making a life choice, it can be something as simple as you don't like someone's boyfriend. Well, they're not your boyfriend. You didn't choose them. So it's none of your business. And if they then say to you, hey, do you like my new boyfriend? You can easily say, to be honest, I have opinions about that, but I'm not sure you want to hear it. If you want to hear it, you can let me know and I'll tell you, but I don't think you want to hear my opinion on it. But I'm very happy for you. You can say it like that. You don't need to always be forcing your opinions down everyone else's throat. And I think this idea that, using the boyfriend example, that simply because you don't like them, you know better, and that you're the person right in the situation, actually you could be the person wrong. They could be the person who's right about the situation. They're the only two people who are in the relationship. And so why is it your right to judge? Why is it your right to comment?
I so agree with you. I'm on your bandwagon. I'm your cheerleader because I think your message is so powerful. It is tremendous. Let's talk about the difference between men and women with boundaries. Can we talk about? Go ahead.
I think there's a greater expectation on women to be selfless, and I think there's a greater expectation on women to be the caretakers of the world. And so as a result, there is it's more difficult for women to set boundaries, and that's not to say men can't struggle setting boundaries as well. But when a woman is very boundaried, being a boundaried woman myself, you get received in a different way, in that there are words that I've been called, from aggressive to rude to harsh, simply because I know what I want and I'll say what I want. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. If a man were to do that, they would be called powerful, confident, in charge, self-assured. They know what they want. And when a woman does it, they're rude, aggressive, because we are taught in our society, or we're socialized, I should say, for women to be more indirect communicators. So when you meet a woman who is a direct communicator like myself, it can be jarring, and it's simply because it's unfamiliar. But rather than actually stopping and pausing and thinking, well, why is this so jarring to me? Why is this making me so uncomfortable? They name call, and it's just not it's not matched within the genders, because I feel like there is this expectation of women being nice and easy to please, and even being ladylike is another term that gets thrown around, where a ladylike woman is compliant and very welcoming and polite and accommodating. And when you have boundaries, you're not going to be put in the category of accommodating people.
That is so true. It is truly, and back in the day, I will say, we used to say, if a man lost his temper, he was taking power, he was taking charge, and he was saying what he felt. But if a woman did, they'd say, oh, she's such a bitch. How could she be, and it's such a different dichotomy of one over the other.
Men are not allowed their sadness in the same way women aren't allowed their anger. And I think, especially when it comes to anger and women not being allowed to express that without them being dismissed as emotional, frankly, I've seen a lot more emotional men because they can't control their anger, but they're allowed to, whereas we're not allowed to. And when you use the word emotional as this negative word, it hurts everyone. It doesn't just hurt men, it doesn't just hurt women, it hurts everyone, because emotions aren't a bad thing. What is bad is if you repress emotions to such an extent that you don't know how to utilize them, you don't know how to heal them. But being an emotional person, I actually think, is my superpower. It's the thing that makes me so powerful, because I'm so aware of how I feel all the time. It's why I'm really good at setting boundaries, because I can feel the moment I get angry, and that anger is trying to tell you something. And if we just for a moment stopped demonizing it, especially women's anger, we would realize that anger's trying to tell us that our boundary is being crossed. Yet we get so wrapped up in, well, I shouldn't feel angry this way, or I don't deserve to feel angry, that becomes a distraction, and then you never actually address the anger you're feeling. You don't process it, you don't set boundaries to relieve it, and you just push it down, and then it usually comes out in something like road rage, where, because that's socially acceptable, but it's simply because you have so much pent up anger that usually accumulates and turns into rage, and so you release it in contexts and settings which are actually nothing to do with what created that anger. Whereas the only true way to heal and process anger is to relieve it in that context, whether either by taking an action like setting a boundary, or actually thinking about that anger and getting it out of your body, with something as simple as like roll up your car windows and just scream to yourself. Getting it out of your body is actually the healthiest way. And when I say something like that, people roll their eyes and think I'm crazy, because they think, well, if I saw a person screaming in their car by themselves, I think that person was crazy. And when actually it's a healthy way of expressing anger, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone or it doesn't hurt yourself. And what people don't realize is that emotions are physically within our body. And so we need to physically release them in order to let them go.
It's so true. And in my book, so I've written a book called My Effing Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path. And one of the exercises, two of the exercises, one of them is taking a bat, a kid's bat, not a wood bat. Go to your mattress, go to a soft surface. I always set the caveat, no animals, no people. This is strictly for inanimate objects, but you just take that bat and you wind up and you just hit that soft surface. Within 10 or 15 seconds, you are going to feel your emotions bubble up. Let them bubble up, let them release. And then the screaming is a part of it. If you need to scream, scream. And then I developed the scream pillow for that reason, so that people will have a place to scream.
A new one I heard was throwing ice at a wall.
I've heard the wall, like, bathtub.
I'm not sure I would do ice, but like it was interesting when I heard that one. I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
I would never do it in a wall, because ice can actually damage your walls. And then if you're renting...
Well, that's what I thought, but apparently that's their way of anger releasing.
No. I have a teacher, and she lives in the woods, and she has nobody underneath her or near her. She goes to the dollar store and buys plates, and she'll go to her balcony and she'll just start whipping those plates, because she's not going to hurt anybody by doing so. But it's a great cathartic thing. There's something about crashing dishes that has a very cathartic feel to it and sound.
I can imagine it's quite satisfying as well.
Exactly, especially if you don't like the dishes. Let's talk about, people seem to think boundaries are very selfish things. I'm a believer that boundaries are not selfish, that they're a gift you give yourself, because you know what you want and you're letting people know what's acceptable and not acceptable. What do you say to those who say, by doing that, you're being selfish and self-serving?
Well, I think about the reason why I called it the joy of being selfish is I wanted to take back that word and say, you can't use it against us anymore. Because if the worst thing I'm going to be is called selfish for setting boundaries, sure, fine, go ahead, so be it. But when it actually comes down to it, boundaries are not set because you hate the people in your life or because you're angry at them a lot of the time. It's because you actually love them and you want to save the relationship. And I think that's one of the biggest confusions around boundaries, is that it's done out of this mean-spiritedness, when actually every example I use within the book, all the text templates, are hard conversations that I'd rather not have, but I did have because I wanted to give the person an opportunity to change, and I I felt safe enough with the person to communicate my needs to them. And so it was my attempt at trying to save the relationship. It was me saying, here's what I need in order for this relationship to work. This is what I'm going to need you to know. And having that conversation. And so it is a lot of the time me telling you how to save our relationship if there is a problem in it. And it's having the respect to actually tell you that. So I actually see it a completely opposite way. And from the people in my life, I know for a fact that they really appreciate the fact that I have good boundaries. And actually one friend said it to me the other day, because she said that it's so easy to be friends with me because she knows when I'm angry, so she never has to guess when I'm angry. Because she was like, when you're angry, you just say, I'm angry, or I'm angry at you because blah, 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 blah. And as much as that sounds really simple, it is very uncommon, and it's a direct way of communicating that a lot of people aren't used to. But she said it makes it really simple because let's say I haven't spoken to her for a week. She's not sat there wondering if it's because I'm angry at her. She knows that if I'm angry with her, I will actually let her know. And so if I haven't spoken to her for a week, it's probably because I'm busy, and she can assume the best of the situation because she knows that we have a direct communication between us.
I love that. I think it's great. And I think it's healthy. What you're talking about is our healthy ways to handle things, healthy ways to deal with people. But what about when the people get offended and they walk out of your life? For somebody who would be devastated by it, how would you suggest, they handle it?
Let yourself be devastated. Let yourself grieve the relationship that you lost as a result of it, but also recognizing the fact that you don't ever lose the wrong relationships from your life of setting boundaries. The people who don't respect your boundaries are the people who shouldn't have been in your life in the first place. And if the reason why you lost someone from your life was because they could no longer take advantage of you because you had boundaries, that's a person who you should just be very grateful you learnt sooner rather than later.
I love that. Are you sure you're only 28? Because your words are, you're such an old soul. The wisdom that is coming out of you is incredible. Truly,
Well,
as
I
a
all learnt it the
compliment.
hard way. You, unfortunately, if you don't learn boundaries when you should have as a child, you end up having to learn it the long way around. And as much as there are people, I'm sure, who learnt it later in life, there was definitely a rocky 5-year journey of learning boundaries through making a lot of mistakes and the messy and clumsy way. And especially when you're learning how to set boundaries for the first time, it is going to be messy. It is going to be clumsy. You don't need to get it perfect the first time, but you need to have the conversation. And that's the only way you get better.
I love that. So we're coming out of a pandemic. You talk about what boundaries do you foresee people needing to set for themselves and why?
I think there are going to be a lot of boundaries around health and safety. So some people are going to feel more comfortable with masks. Some people are going to be more comfortable going outside. Some people are comfortable in group situations. Some people would only be comfortable in smaller groups. And it's about respecting where someone's boundary is, even if you don't agree with it, even if you don't understand it. Just because you're comfortable in group situations, if a friend says to you, hey, I really want to see you, but I don't think I can come to your house party. I'm still a bit nervous. So can we go for lunch one-on-one? If you value that person in your life, you will make time for it. You will accommodate whatever boundaries need to be met at that point. But there are definitely going to be new conversations that we haven't had pre-pandemic, at least.
It's so true. It's so true. And people, sometimes I will tell you the logic sort of loses me when with some people's boundaries. I mean, you accept them because I'm not going to fight anybody about what they feel is best for them. But sometimes it's sort of like, really? Okay. But it doesn't have to make sense to me as long as it makes sense to them, right?
Yeah. And you
So
don't need to say what you're thinking the entire time, is what I've learned. There was so much conversation about being no filtered. And actually, I think it's a beautiful thing when humans know when to filter themselves and not give their opinion unsolicited all the time.
cheers to that. I love that. Let's stay tuned. We have to take a quick break. Hang around because we have more with Michele Elman. Again, if you want to talk to Michele or have a question for her, 888-346-9141, or you can IM me on my Facebook page of the same name. Talk to you soon. We'll be right back.
And we're all clear. Good job. Back in 2.
Thank you. My brain is just going ding, 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 ding. So I apologize.
An hour's a long time. No, don't worry.
I'm giving my phone number out.
Oh no, was that your personal phone number? You
I
started
was
saying.
I was about to, yeah. I was like, okay. There's some I want to, because we don't have a lot of time, and there's so many great questions here that you have. But oh yeah, we have romantic relationships to talk about before we end. Is there anything I have not covered that you'd like to address?
No, anything sounds good.
Perfect, because we
I'm
only
quite
have,
flexible.
when we come back, we'll have time for maybe 2 questions. So I just want to make sure.
Cool.
I want to see if there's anything I wanted to address here, because I want to talk about the Queen of Boundaries, if that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And your tips to living a happy and fulfilling life. I know I want to get that in as well. Okay. So I just love this, because everything that you're talking about is, I think, so powerful for people to learn and to sort of rein in, because there's so many people that aren't raised with boundaries. I wasn't raised with boundaries. I got mine later in life, but once I did, I found boundaries to be a savior.
Yeah. It gives you so much time and energy back as well.
It truly, truly does. And oh my God, and the time, once you expend time, you don't get it back. It's your one time out to do so.
Exactly. It also makes your life so much simpler.
It does. It does. And you know what? Things are so, I hate to say convoluted, but it is. Life is somewhat more convoluted today than it was 10 years ago. And why?
Yeah.
Because of everything that's going on. I
Well,
don't
I
know.
also think there are more demands of us on a daily basis.
There are, and there's more fear.
Yeah.
People are living in such fear, especially now they're talking about scarcity. People have scarcity issues to begin with. And then for the news to be constantly saying you're not going to be able to get a Christmas tree or decorations or food, or, I had a friend of mine.
12 seconds.
Thank you.
.com.
You are listening to Guided Spirit Conversations. To reach Marla Goldberg or her guest today, you are invited to call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. If you'd rather send an email, the address is guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. If you're just tuning in, my guest today is Michele Elman. Michele is a creator and host of her own podcast. In all honesty, she's a life coach. Her first book from 2018, Am I Ugly, which we talked about earlier in the show, which is phenomenal. And her newest baby has been birthed in August. I'm getting my A's mixed up. And you can find her book, The Joy of Being Selfish, Why You Need Boundaries and How to Set Them, at Barnes & Noble, all the major book outlets, Amazon, and I'm happy to say Audible. So welcome back, Michele.
Thank you so much.
I am loving this conversation. It is charity shout out time. Your charity is Lucy Air Ambulance for Children.
Yes.
Let's talk about why that's so important.
So they're this wonderful charity. So at the end of the year, I donate a certain portion of my income to a number of charities, and actually I donated to them anonymously, and they reached out to me and thanked me for my donation. So and then I started talking to the owner of the charity, and it was just this wonderful small charity that I didn't realize how small it was until I started talking to them. And they're all about being able to provide air transport to kids who need emergency surgery. So that's close to my heart because of the own surgeries that I went through. And whilst I didn't travel by air to get to hospital, I did have to go through a number of flights and trips to get emergency surgery when I was much younger because of the medical technology that wasn't available in Hong Kong, which is where I was living at the time. And so I did have to come to America for emergency surgeries.
I think it's great. So everyone, please check out Lucy's Air, right? I'll get it.
Ambulance.
Lucy's Air Ambulance for Children at www.lucyaac.org.uk. It is a very important charity because emergencies happen. We need to get our young ones to the hospital and have them taken care of a lot of times sooner rather than later. So check them out. Try to help them. It is the holiday season. So, and in America, Thanksgiving is around the corner, which is about gratitude. It's a way of showing gratitude. If not this, maybe something similar. Thank you, Michele. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two questions. I know we're running out of time quickly, but this is such a phenomenal conversation. Let's talk about boundaries in romantic relationships.
Yeah, so I think it's quite easy in romantic relationships to lose ourselves and not know where the boundary is between who we are and who they want us to be, both as a partner, but also who they are as a person. Sometimes the person we're dating can even affect who we become, and it's silly things. Like, I remember once dating a person who used to always use the word iconic, and before I knew it, within a week or two, I was using the word iconic all the time. And if you just think about that as language, think about your other behaviors, how much that person is wearing off on you. And it's why it's so important in romantic relationships to have a strong sense of identity so that you know who you are and you don't let other people change you just because you're spending a lot of time together. You lose that distinction.
It's true. You tend to blend into each other. I will
Yeah.
totally agree with that. So Andrea is asking a new way to live a happy life, and I wanted to ask your tips to living a happy and fulfilling life.
So I always find I'm happiest when I spend more time out of my head and more time in my body. And what I mean by that is I have a distinction between that thinking brain and where you're constantly talking about conversations to yourself, dissecting things that might have taken place in the past, in the future, and just being in your body and your mind going quiet. And sometimes the way I do that to get back to that point is to focus on my breath, and just focus on counting your breaths in and out. And it's a way to quieten your mind, and it is a lot more of a peaceful life when you're able to do that.
Well, breathing is part of a grounding process. Yes, you agree? And that
Absolutely.
when you
I
do
mean,
slow
people call
breaths,
different things. So people call it meditation or mindfulness or grounding. All of these aspects I pretty much think are quite similar or the same thing. And they are something that have really helped me calm down my nervous system so that I don't always feel like I'm in flight or fight. And if something has happened in my life where I have a burst of adrenaline or whatever it is, sometimes you don't realize you're moving out of that place, you're thinking out of that place. And that place, unfortunately, especially within your brain, is a place that will catastrophize, exaggerate everything that's going on. And so being able to come back to your body also allows you to think more clearly.
it's so true. You're so incredibly wise. I love what you're sharing because I really believe all of these things that we've been talking about regarding boundaries and about being selfish. And I like using the word selfish as you do, in the sense of you have to take care of yourself. It's that whole adage with the airplanes, right? Put on your oxygen mask first because you can't help anybody if you're passed out.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't say it that way, but I'm saying that way.
I think they actually do. Well, I don't know the last time I've been on a plane now that we live in a pandemic, but I actually think they do. You can't help someone else until you help yourself, is the sentence they do actually say.
It's so true. Now, what if you have a boss at work who goes over the boundaries, who asks you to do things that are inappropriate, or who says inappropriate things to you? What do you suggest for that?
I think you can set those boundaries, whether that's either setting the boundaries with that person or setting that boundaries with a superior to that person. And what you might find is within the workplace, you might want to have evidence. So if you feel like you would be more comfortable setting that boundary in a written form of communication so that you can prove that you've said that if anything ever takes place legally or otherwise, then make sure you write it in an email that, hey, this, so you have your proof that this was said on this date and I don't feel comfortable with it and I voiced my discomfort and nothing was done about it. So you have an accumulation of instances, and if it's something minor or something like a boss sending you an email on the weekend when you're trying to rest, or sending emails at midnight when you're not being paid enough to be working at midnight, then send an email saying, hi, I've seen your email. I'm not working right now, but I'll get back to you when I'm back in the office tomorrow morning. Hi, I don't work weekends, but if you'd like me to work weekends, we can have a conversation about it next week, in which case I'm going to need financial compensation for working weekends. Having those conversations is about knowing your worth, knowing what you deserve, and that just because someone pays you doesn't mean they deserve to have access to you 24/7.
Truer words were never said. And I hope this gives people the internal power to set their boundaries. So what about people who have a hard time saying no?
You have to start saying no. A lot of the time when I get asked, well, how do you say no? They're not asking how does a 2-letter word come out of their mouth. They're asking, how do I say it without upsetting people? And frankly, you're not going to be able to control how other people respond to your boundaries. So remove that responsibility, focus on you, focus on what you need, and let the chips fall where they may. And you'll have the knowledge that that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay, and you're going to be able to deal with it, and you'll be able to handle the consequences, and be proud of yourself for the boundary that you set. And if you focus on the pride that you feel for the boundary you set, you will focus less on their feelings, their worries, their concerns.
I love that because it's so true. And we spend so much time worrying more about other people than we worry about ourselves.
Absolutely.
What's that all about?
Well, I think it's this preoccupation with being liked, and if you can't be liked, then you feel like you're not good enough. So again, it comes down to self-esteem. Knowing you deserve to set boundaries is a huge piece of it.
So true, Michele. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I have loved our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I love the content. I think it's powerful. I think this can help a lot of people. Michele Elman, pay attention, because this young lady she's going to be burning it up, because she's written 2 books. She's only, do you mind if I say?
No, 28 years old.
28 years old.
I'm going to be saying my age until I'm 90 years old. I have no shame around age.
And she has written 2 books, Am I Ugly? And her latest book is, okay, excuse my brain. It's the time of life. The Joy of Being Selfish. Why you need boundaries and how to set them. So important. Great for the holiday season. Great to keep you sane through the holiday season. You can check out her books on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the major outlets where you purchase books, as well as Audible. So you can listen to these words. Did you narrate the book yourself?
Yes, I did.
How wonderful. And Michele's a narrator too. She's doing voiceover work. So there you go. So please tune in to check Michele out. And also check out Michelle's website at michelleelman.com. And Michele has 2 L's. So check her out. Check out how she might be able to help you with your life and with her coaching, because you're so wise. So
thank you so much.
Want to bring a lot of people your way. I want to thank everyone at Voice America for all you do to get the show up and running and on the air. I want to thank Bridget for all you do for me. I also want to thank you, the listening audience, for taking time out of your day, out of your life, to be a part of this show. And I hope in all my heart and desire that what the people I bring on, the information we share, really helps and resonates with you. I want to make a couple of announcements. Please check out There's a descriptor on my Facebook page about Unwind Your Mind Summit with Melissa Lyons, which launches on the 8th of November. And it has some amazing people, not only myself, but Robert Schwartz, who talks about pre-birth planning, Suzanne Giesman, to name a few. Also, speaking of Suzanne Giesman, Suzanne has got a class going on. It's called 3 Keys to Unlock Your Power of Mediumship. If you're interested in developing your abilities with mediumship, Suzanne Giesman is an amazing resource to work with. So please check that out as well. And till the next time, till next week, as always, I send you love, I send you blessings, and I send you gratitude. Know how grateful I am that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. And if you haven't heard these words today, you're going to hear them now. I love you, and I am so grateful for you. Have a great week. Stay well, stay healthy, be joyful and grateful. Till the next time. Bye for now.